Got in some new lights today, so I wanted to make a quick comparison video, just comparing a couple of the weather-mounted lights that I now have, that I'm sure lots of people have, very popular stuff. So basically I demonstrate various lights at 50, 100, 200, and 300 yards. For pistol lights, I have the Streamlight TLR-7 as well as the Streamlight TLR-1 HL. For rifle lights, I have the Cloud Defensive Owl, the Malkoff E2XT-L, which is the same as the E2XT, except for it takes 18650 batteries, the Surefire M600V, which is the KM2C head, or the Vamp 600, as well as the Malkoff IR250 and the Modlite PLHv2. I also have a handheld Surefire G2X Pro that I keep with me every day, so I'm going to be comparing that as well. So starting at 50 yards, we have the Streamlight TLR-7. You can see you can make it out pretty well. Next we have the TLR-1 HL. You can see significantly brighter, you can make it out great. Again, this is 50 yards. Next we have the Malkoff E2XT-L. You can see that's obviously significantly brighter with a much more concentrated hotspot. Next is the Cloud Defensive Owl. Significantly more spill, kind of lights up the whole area quite a bit better, but obviously less of a hot spot. This is the Modlite PLHv2, and you can see fairly tight hot spot, but a little more flood than the E2XT-L. And then finally a Surefire G2X Pro on high, and then on low. You can see on low it really doesn't illuminate it at all. So the IR lights, we're going to be looking through an AN PVS-14A. This is the Surefire KM2C, or the M600 Vamp, or M600V. You can see quite a bit of spill. Doesn't really, even at 50 yards, is fairly anemic. Does light it up enough to where you can see it pretty well, but it's nothing great. This is the Malkoff IR250. You can see significantly brighter, obviously much tighter. So we are now at 100 yards. First up is the Streamlight TLR-7. Let's see, barely make out the target. Next, the Streamlight TLR-1 HL. Actually make out the target still really well. The Cloud Defensive Owl. It seems to be about the same on target brightness as the TLR-1 HL. Maybe a little brighter, but obviously significantly more spill there. Modlite PLHv2. You can see a bit brighter than the Owl. The spill is decent. So Malkoff E2XT-L. You can see that's significantly more focused. Definitely not as much spill as the Owl or the Modlite, but probably the brightest on the target at 100. Surefire G2X Pro, high. you can make out the target. You have a decent amount of, you have actually significant amount of spill to the point where everything reflecting back is kind of obscuring the target, but you can make out the target at 100 with this. With the low, you can't at all. Surefire Cam 2C. Malkoff IR250. So this is 200 yards. From back here through the camera, even in daylight, you can't really make out the target, but I have placed the target regardless at 200 yards. You should be able to, at least in the camera, see the backstop. So this is the TLR-7, and might not pick up on camera, but you can barely make out the backstop. The target is completely invisible. TLR-1 HL. The backstop's fairly visible. Target is very difficult to see, but could technically count as visible. Not enough to where I would classify this as positive identification at 200 yards though. Cloud Defensive Owl. Better, significantly better visibility of the backstop than the TLR-1 HL. You can make out the target. Again, back here, it's hard to positively identify with no magnification, but you can definitely make out the outline of the target. Modlite PLHv2. So, not as visible as the owl. I don't know what's going on with this switch, but this is the Modlite mod button light switch, but a little strange. Regardless, backdrop's actually pretty visible. Target, not so much. This is the Malkoff E2XT-L, and it's probably the brightest on the target. You can make out the outline of the target really well. Definitely not as much spill as the other two rifle lights, but TLR-1 HL, 300 yards. Can't see anything beyond 200. Malkoff E2XT-L, 300. Decent visibility towards the back, but nothing great in terms of positive identification. Cloud Defensive Owl. Basically topped out at 200. You can't really see anything into the hollow. Modlite PLHv2. Decent illumination into the back there, but not as nice as the Malkoff E2XT. But significantly more spill, obviously. With the Malkoff IR250 at 300 yards, you can't really make out the backstop. You can see it illuminates, in the way from 200 to 300, but not really illuminating the targets at 300.